Now, a lot of people don't know this, but the TAO halving is coming in December. Yes, TAO has a halving similar to Bitcoin, and we're going to talk about that. But today, I wanted artificial intelligence to do the dirty work for me. I asked AI, what are the chances if Bittensor TAO can hit the top 10 market caps? We're going to be talking about all of this, the halving, network effects, and even the integrations of Coinbase and Solana. If you want to know more about Bittensor, make sure you go throughout my YouTube catalog and watch the videos. Make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give me your TAO predictions in the comments. The market is looking fire. Of course, the market looks much better when Ethereum is sitting over 4K. And you can see Ethereum is currently sitting at $4,000. This is a huge psychological step for altcoins. And TAO is up 5.9% on the day, sitting at a $3 billion market cap. We've even been seeing a lot of TAO subnets do well today. If we go to the 24-hour, you can see lots of green within DTAO and the subnet ecosystem. And me personally, I'm bullish on DTAO. But what doesn't get talked about enough is the TAO halving and how it affects the network, whether that be miners, validators, or even holders of the TAO tokens and subnet. So I wanted to make my job a little bit easier by asking AI, what are the chances that Bittensor TAO hits the top 10? Because if you've been watching me on X, I've been really vocal about TAO flipping Cardano, ADA, right? So I'm not going to get on the ADA gang today. I'm going to be talking about a whole nother token I think that TAO can flip. But let's actually get into Bittensor versus the top 10, right? Currently, TAO is ranked number 32. It's $375 and the market cap is sitting at 3.6 billion. In order for it to get in the top 10, it needs to roughly get go up 700%. So that's almost like a 10x, right? That's almost like a 10x. So it needs to do somewhere between a 7x and an 8x. And right now it sits at 32. Just looking at some of the market caps of some of the tokens in the top 10 gives me hope based on the niche and the narrative that Bittensor sits in. It currently sits in the hottest narrative in cryptocurrency, and in my opinion, the hottest narrative in the world, which is artificial intelligence. Now, taking a look at these tokens in the top 10, the token I wanted to pick on today is Tron, TRX. In my mind, I don't see why Bittensor is not valued more than something like Tron. And to be fair, I don't know enough about Tron and how big Tron is in other countries because I am in the States, but I truly believe that Bittensor should be up here with some of the giants in the altcoin market. You can see a meme coin, the meme king, Dogecoin, sits at a $34 billion market cap. Solana sits at a $96 billion market cap. BNB sits at a $110 billion market cap. And their owner, former founder, former CEO just got out of prison. So for me, I feel like TAO should be a lot more competitive because it's an artificial, and in fact, it's the biggest AI play in crypto right now with some of the groundbreaking tech and things that are being built within the ecosystem, like DTAO and some of these subnets. But you can even see here, XRP sits at a $195 billion market cap. TAO's price target to enter the top 10 would roughly have to be about $2,600. 2,640. So for people thinking they're priced out of TAO, remember it has the same, or should I say similar tokenomics as Bitcoin. So just imagine Bitcoin sitting at $375. That would be crazy, right? Because we see Bitcoin go all the way up to 120,000. So just keep that in mind. TAO also has institutional money flows, right? Wall Street is starting to bet on Bittensor. This is Oblong here. First Nasdaq listed TAO investor. They hold about $8.1 million in TAO. And TAO Synergies, right? World's largest public TAO treasury, holds $15.8 million in TAO. TAO, Canadian public company and TAO treasury focus, also holds 15.6 million in TAO. And then we have the DSV funds, which we've been seeing publicly do OTC deals with some of the biggest subnets in the space right now. I think that institutional money is starting to find TAO. But when we get down into the actual numbers, in my opinion, this is minuscule. And we'll even talk about it a little bit later on how AI feels like these numbers are severely undervalued, what could be possibly flowing into TAO by 2027. So institutional money, again, is starting to find TAO, right? This is a legitimate signal. Public companies validate TAO as institutional grade asset, right? Similar to some of the tokens we see in the ETFs. Supply reduction. Institutional staking removes TAO from circulation. So not only do we have halvings, but when these institutions get into the TAO Bittensor ecosystem, they normally stake. So this is bullish for the scarcity aspect of TAO. This is why, again, when I say $300, it sounds like a lot when you compare it to tokens like penny stocks and penny, I call them penny cryptos, right? They less than a zero. But think about the supply. This is why it's important to understand tokenomics. And then the long-term vision, right? Strategic holdings indicate confidence in TAO's future. We got companies that's working to be the micro strategy of TAO, just as MicroStrategy is to Bitcoin. Another thing that's starting to happen is the cross-chain expansion. So for the last few weeks, we've seen Bittensor spread that liquidity on Base and Solana. Solana personally, specifically Void AI. Make sure you go check out my video I did on Void AI. And then Base here, specifically TAO5.com, which is subnet 10, right? Where anything on Coinbase in the future could be possibly listed on in the exchange, right? There's been huge news, and now their Coinbase L2 solution enables one-click access to liquidity and the subnets. So we got over 128 subnets. Not all of them are active, so I do recommend you guys go out there and do your research, but this could bring even more liquidity into the TAO ecosystem, right? The Base integration is already happening, and the Solana integration is already happening. I would say they need to have a little bit more liquidity, but what subnet 10 is doing doesn't require the liquidity. Liquidity is already there. So once Void AI figures out what they want to do with that liquidity on some of these subnets, which I've personally been watching the liquidity. I've seen the liquidity on WTAO start to rise. I'm seeing liquidity on multiple top subnets start to rise. So people are interacting with DTAO within these other chains. And this is bullish because this is increased accessibility. It enhances the liquidity. It's DeFi integration. So now people don't have to feel like it's hard to buy TAO or it's hard to interact with the ecosystem. You want the normies to feel like it's normal, similar to that special feeling you get when you buy a Solana meme coin. And this is also ecosystem growth, expanded use cases and adoption potentially across multiple blockchain communities. But let's talk a little bit more about the halving, because according to my halving countdown here, the halving could happen on December 25th. Now, of course, you never know exactly what days these halvings actually pop up on because of the blocks, but there's a good chance that it happens on Christmas Day, which would be the ultimate event for the TAO ecosystem, right? The halving occurs when 10.5 million TAO tokens are in circulation, exactly 50%, maximum 21 million supply, right? So this is when you'll start to see those scarcity effects really hit. Emission reduction, block rewards drop from 1 TAO per block to 0.5 TAO. So again, for the people that's complaining about the miners and the miners earning too much emissions, this actually is going to reduce that emission. So now we're about to see the subnets that are really going to last, right? Because this is going to create scarcity. A lot of miners ain't going to make it. And to be frankly, a lot of subnets aren't going to make it. So this really is going to pinpoint the companies or projects within DTAO that are really, really, really working, because remember, you get incentivized based on the quality of work you do within the AI marketplace. It's basically incentivizing AI intelligence. And then of course, this is going to create a supply shock, supply versus demand, institutional interest. Institutions love Bitcoin because of the scarcity, because of the way that the tokens and the holders and how everything is just, a good supply, right? You want to have healthy supply, right? You don't want all the supply just in one hand. You don't want all the supply at the top 10 or the top 30. You want a good, healthy supply list. And I think that this is why a lot of institutions are interested in Bitcoin, right? This also incentivizes the network security. Reduced rewards incentivize more efficient mining and validation, which we just talked about. Deflationary pressure combined with staking burns create strong deflationary environment where it can help the token appreciate. Historical precedent, Bitcoin halvings have historically led to bull runs 6 to 18 months after the halving, right? So if this is really, if this really is, if this halving thing really is a thing, we're about to see, right? Because if it ends up being a flop, it kind of like takes away from the Bitcoin thesis. So just keep that in mind. Again, understand that the halving will cut both TAO and all subnet alpha tokens emissions by 50%. So not only does the TAO token, go through a halving, but also the subnets. So just keep that in mind. This creates intermediate economic pressure that could force out inefficient participants while making remaining tokens more scarce. Unlike Bitcoin, which only affects one token, Bittensor's double halving impacts the entire ecosystem. Miners will definitely feel the cut and the need for TAO's price to roughly double. So you probably see people going harder for the community because now those miner rewards are being cut, and a lot of people are really going to put the ecosystem out there because it's going to be more dependent on the token's price, the appreciation of the token price. So just keep that in mind. Making this a make or break moment where TAO either rockets higher or the network faces serious economic strain. So again, I feel like TAO should be sitting where TRX is. I feel like TAO should easily do an 8.9x, right? This will put TAO at about 3,000. But this is what you came for the video for, right? What does AI think? Does AI really believe that Bittensor TAO can enter the top 10? Well, let's actually talk about it. So this is my model's TAO top 10 thesis. 5 things that must happen. This is the Degen edition, right? So the halving must go burr, right? December's 2025 halving cut emissions 50%. If TAO doesn't 3 to 5x within 18 months, like the Bitcoin halvings, the whole thesis is wrecked. Supply shock is supposed to equal institutional demand, moon or doom. Institutions go ape, right? So currently, $40 million is like peanuts when you think about these treasury companies, and we say institutional interest. We need Fortune 500 companies pulling a micro strategy, but for AI. Pension funds, endowments, the whole TradFi gang needs to stack out TAO like their life depends on it. Right now, TAO has about 40 million of institutional money and maybe more, but 1 billion plus is needed for it to seriously be looked at as a top 10 cryptocurrency. Cross-chain needs to explode. Base and Solana bridges must create DeFi Degen paradise with these subnets. Think Uniswap, but for AI tokens. If normies can't ape easily, we're not making it. So again, this is my motto here, telling me everything that needs to happen for TAO to enter the top 10. AI narrative and dominance, right? When businesses choose Bittensor over OpenAI and Google, we've made it. Need enterprise partnerships, superior AI models, and end proof that decentralized AI big tech monopolizes. So again, we need to prove, right, that decentralization in AI is the way. We need people to start choosing Bittensor for APIs, for anything AI models, building, training, LLMs, anything you could think of AI. We need them to choose Bittensor first, right? We need really, really, really to dominate the AI narrative. And it's a good chance that happens, right? We're already seeing Chutes and a few other subnets compete with some of the biggest centralized companies, but we need to dominate, guys. Let me know in the comments if you think TAO can dominate. And then the network effects pump, right? Subnets talking to each other, like creating AGI level breakthrough moments when the network becomes more valuable than Bitcoin. It's literally running the world's AI engine, and that's the end game, right? And I think the halving is going to push these subnets to be better, to create, to really, put out groundbreaking technology, right? Because when those emissions get cut, you got to go harder. So this is all going to help the network, and hopefully we get price appreciation because of the scarcity aspect in these institutional companies. So the model predicts there's a 35 to 40% chance that Bittensor enters the top 10 by 2026. The risk here is the halving flops, miners rage quit because of the network, emissions cut, network dies, bags go to zero, wife leaves, have to work at McDonald's. And then the reward here is we get a 7x or higher, right? Early retirement. I told you so rights, Lambo, generational wealth. And I know a lot of people in the TAO ecosystem are hoping for that. Let me know what you think, right? Is the model wrong? Do you think that TAO should be valued in the top 10? If all 5 happen, the model believes there's a guarantee that TAO enters the top 10, right? So of course, this is not financial advice, guys. Let me know, what do you think about TAO, the institutional interest, and do you believe it's a top 10 altcoin in cryptocurrency? I wanted to break down to you guys how the halving works, what to expect from the halving, and hopefully somebody watched this video and left with some alpha. It's your boy Crypto Millie. I'll see you in the next one.